Thank you for coming back. I'm very excited about our next speaker, partly because I get to pronounce her first name, which I believe is Prarthana. Prarthana Johnson from Microsoft. Thank you very much. She said, don't worry about the whole accent thing, but you know me. Anyway, she's really going to follow up a good bit from what we were talking about, how virtual and actual interactions relate to one another. She is in charge of a group up in Puget Sound with Microsoft that's evaluating and pursuing this area. She has a great bio here that says that she really enjoys figuring out the infinite variety of paths that it takes to solve a problem, and is a fine brainstormer. I can tell she is already. We were just talking about chickens, so that's pretty good. So with no further ado, I'm going to bring Prarthana back up and speak. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. Thank you so much, Bryant. So, what do? Well, I work at Microsoft, as Bryant said. And I'm a jelly bean maker. Exactly what Philip says. I work on a product called Link. And if you noticed, he showed some screenshots of that. We care a lot about presence. And what we've done is actually looked at every way we can think about meetings. Looking at Link, we looked at how people connect, how they brainstorm, how they want to get things done, how they want to have conversations or present or have more formal meetings. So I also represent, not recently, I guess, 3 years ago, we purchased Skype, and we now are part of one whole organization. So we represent communications at Microsoft. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about where these meetings happen and what we think, how it impacts the workplace and the spaces that we look at. And this puts it really well. And it's, the people and the information and the technology and all the presentations that we've seen today from Philip and others, we talk a lot about how the space and the workplace has changed because of all this new technology and all the things that are happening right now. So I could say it's broken, because it is quite a bit where you walk into a conference room. How many times have people walked into a conference room and had the meeting start in virtually no time at all? Did you know the average meeting at Microsoft starts in 17 minutes? 17 minutes. So my job is to help make that no time at all. And so we have to look at these spaces to see how we can embed technology a little bit better, so we can say, hey, let's make it, seamless. So it's changed. So I'm going to walk you through how some of it's changed, as we've already seen. We walk into meetings and we'll have layers of technology. There's sometimes more technology than there are people, where people are having their home phone, their work phone with them, their laptop, their iPad, and then maybe there's a screen at the other end of the table. So what kind of meeting is that? Are people paying attention to each other or the technology? We also have new technology available to us. We have things that people brought up, like the portal, screens that show up, new videos, sensors. I think somebody broke out the phone. The iPhone has 3 sensors in it. Well, we're going to start seeing sensors in other phones and wearables. I think somebody at Motorola who presented earlier, Steve's got a watch on, if you haven't seen it, that also tracks. It also, I know the new Apple Watch has some sensors in it as well. So imagine spaces that have contained sensors in them. We also are trying to connect with people while we're remote. We want to show them things while we're in our spaces because we carry our phones. We want to bring something we saw that's awesome, or some sound that we heard, or whatever it might be. We want to take those things and bring them into meetings. We also have people that have personal styles. If anyone has gone into a space with engineers and developers, it's not unlikely that you won't see somebody set up with their 6-screen setup to be effective at work, right next to somebody else who's trying to call into a meeting and try to have an effective conversation, right? In this space, if you look at this space, this is really important. This is a type of meeting where everybody congregates and come together. You know, we have older spaces that are college-like and amphitheater where a professor is teaching and there's many students in there. That's also a type of meeting that we look at. And we have to look at how these new spaces need to accommodate for the new technology and what kind of experiences we're trying to promote. And then there are these times where people are looking for some sanctuary, that they're looking for a place to be who they are and what they want to be and be comfortable in whatever way they want to work. And we want to have that natural use of technology for them. And ultimately, when we look at the different trends and the different way people are working, we want to encourage new relationships. We want to encourage the conversation so people can get things done. So what we realize is people are not going to just go use that touch screen. They're not going to just go walk up to that touch screen and say, oh, it's so awesome. It's great. What we realize that technology works best when it fits into their needs, when the activities and the things and their behaviors that people are trying to do is when the technology fits into their lives perfectly, is when we can be most successful. And this ties in quite a bit to what Christine says this morning. So what I'm going to present to you today is a little bit of what I would call the digital sphere and the physical sphere. We were lucky enough to collaborate with Herman Miller, and we had this extended about, I want to say about a 3 to 6 month project where we looked at secondary research, we analyzed different spaces, and they came up with several workspaces. We ended up focusing on about 4, and I'll share with you those later. But we have to figure out what happens when we meld these two areas together. We have to look at all the applications and services that Microsoft offers. We have Outlook, we have Yammer, we have different storage devices. We want to make sure information's secure and that nothing leaks. That if I send you a document that's confidential, that no one somewhere else is going to be able to access that content. We also look at different endpoints and different devices that people bring into the meetings and try to make sure that we can accommodate for any type of device. Even though we're Microsoft and we have the Windows Phone, it's really important that we work really well with Apple and we work really well with Google, because people aren't going to just go buy Windows Phone to work with our services, right? And so it's really important to look at the different variants party devices that we have to offer. And then we look at the physical sphere, the tools, the artifacts, and the new ones, the new technologies that come up and how things change. The furniture, whether people break it, or the lighting that doesn't fit in, or the chairs are impossibly heavy and I can't get my stuff done because I can't move the thing away. And then, different patterns and people's behaviors as they move through the space. Well, I'm an interaction designer at Microsoft, and I look at where people first time experience the software screen or the surfaces that has that UI on it. How can I make that experience magical so these two places meet perfectly? Okay. So that's why the conversation is a little bit about that sweet spot. So the 4 spaces, so when Herman Miller and Microsoft left, I was in charge of taking forward the work and saying, how can this research influence how we look at products? How do we move forward? And especially in the meeting space. We decided that we had 4 spaces that we wanted to target for a new set of software or a new set of hardware opportunities. So I'm going to walk you through each one. The first one is the Vibe. The second one is the Huddle. And the third is the Next Generation Conference Room. And the fourth and final is the My Stage. So imagine with me, what if we had interactive public surfaces that you could touch, have fun, freely discover information about your organization, feel connected, and have really awesome conversation with other people around it? Well, we call this the Vibe. This is a public space where people can share and discover. They're able to make connections and just have some fun. So when we looked at this space, we said, well, what are the current needs and behaviors of people right now? What are some things that we feel? Well, we kind of talked about them a little bit earlier. So people don't feel connected in their groups. They don't really know what's upcoming in the news and the trends that might happen. So especially at a company like Microsoft, we work across the globe. We have hundreds of products, or at least limited down to several now. But we never know what people are working on. We never know what the most upcoming things are and how it might be related to something that I want to work on, or how I might be able to provide input. So when we talk about the vibe, we found that there was opportunity to look at places where people can find access to information. Tune in and see what's the latest. And especially as a company at Microsoft, there might be a blood drive, but I don't know because I don't know about it. We have an amazing set of lecturers that come in. I never know about them. But if there was a place or a space that I could go to make connections with other people, this would be a fantastic place. So you could imagine putting new technology, maybe touch screens, maybe some sensors and cameras in these spaces. And I would say it's not unlike the place where you might go that has a water cooler or the coffee machine, right? These are great places where, to be honest, that's where a lot of my new projects come from. It's that conversation that I have with somebody that's ad hoc right in front of the coffee machine. Because it takes, as somebody said today, it takes about a minute to brew that coffee. Well, you might as well talk about what we might work on in the future. We also looked at different ways of where these spaces are. They're also conjoining spaces, hallways, where you can look at where those two meld. We have places where the developers work and then the designers work. And there could be a vehicle for those two places to be interconnected by putting one of these devices in between to encourage more dialogue, encourage food for thought. So as a designer, there are things that I have to consider on that software screen. What is it that we're showing? What kind of content? And we've noticed that there's sort of criteria that we have to look at making sure that content's up to date. It can't be stale. It can't be that same video playing for 3 months because people aren't going to acknowledge it anymore. It's got to be a place that the display is updated. It's also got to be encouraging. It can't just sit there. It has to be attractive. It has to be a place that people can want to walk to and interact with. It's got to be compelling. And it's got to be easy for people who manage it, the IT admins or whoever is owning that device, to be able to update that information easily. So I'm going to walk you through the next space. So imagine that you take 3 or 4 people in a room and then collaborate and have a great conversation and just flow back and forth and be able to take an idea and make it into many other ideas. And then be able to take whatever you've done physically and digitally and be able to pick up, walk away knowing that it's saved, and then pick up where you left off. Well, what we call this space is the huddle. And this is a place where we'd say rich collaboration can occur, have the team really connected, have really close relationships. It's also a place where people start having fun, that they might even brainstorm a little bit, but then they might go off in a little bit of a tangent and have a little conversation and then come back into getting work done. But you don't want to leave people behind. And some of the problems that we see today in the huddle is that remote people can't be part of this. They can try really hard, but it's really hard. Has anyone called into a meeting and it's like, hey, we want to build ideas together, and you're just like, wait, I'm here, I'm here. Wait. Hey, I want to be. I have a drawing for you. I want to show. I have some ideas, and you can't. It's really hard. The technology doesn't enable you to do that really well. Well, or you can't see. You can't see what the other person. They walked up to the whiteboard and they put these awesome notes on there, and you're like, oh, I can't. I'm sorry. Can you take a picture and send it to me? So there's opportunities here. People are acting and behaving in these spaces where we want to include the remote people. If there was ways that we could save the digital artifacts or the physical artifacts that are created and transfer them in a way that we can pick up where we left off. Is there ways that we can look at new technology? Imagine having cameras in the space that people that were connected and not in the space could zoom into. That can easily say, okay, wait, I want to zoom into the whiteboard and I want to take a look at what you guys have talked about here. Is there ways that we can, digital whiteboards are actually getting a little bit better every day. Like I've seen, I know I'm not going to advocate for our products, but the Surface, that small little screen, you can touch and do things on there that you can't normally do. And people are expecting that to happen now. And so there's more use and more opportunity. But I'm not going to say that we talk about these new innovations and we have some of these displays in our workspace and people will ignore that device and walk up to the whiteboard because it's what they're used to. So I'm not going to say that it's not, something you want to. You have to help change that paradigm shift. You have to make it attractive or make it purposeful. Things to look at for these spaces are acoustic treatments. The audio is near impossible. If you are in a room and there's only one microphone and the other person's on the other side brainstorming, that other person can't hear it. So when you think about these meeting spaces, you want to think about where you can maybe place multiple microphones in certain parts of the space. Look at the visual boundaries. Like there are obstructions today, and that we definitely know where we want to avoid sitting today in our space, right? It's the same thing for the remote person. They don't. If the other person walks behind the collaboration space and there's a pole in it, well, they can't see. It's really hard for them. So. And this space is definitely, when you look at furniture, you really want to look at it like stools or things that they can get up and sit down and transition easily. Most people are in these rooms for quite a longer time. They're not in these rooms for a quick 15 minutes. Sometimes they're in this space for over a period of time, where this is sometimes a project room. It's dedicated. It's something that I'm going to go to over and over again. So it's really important to look at how that might go through. And I kind of went through some of the design criteria, no obstructions, really easy. Imagine some of the sensor technology that we can do. If I could walk up to the space and it recognized who I was and it remembered all the last brainstorming session that I had. So walking through the next space, imagine a meeting room that was predictable, responsive, and designed to make our meetings better and professional, where everything went the way that I wanted it to go, and then everybody that was sitting in the room or anybody that was called in felt like they were part of the conversation. And what if it just worked? Like I said. So we looked at the next generation conference room is what we call this space. And right now, I've pictured it showing you guys this perfect aligned, conference table, but it's not always like that. But we know that we can't just retire the things that we already know how to use. And we know that there's conference rooms for a purpose, and there's a reason. We can't strip that room and redesign that room. There's a need and there's a purpose for it. And we want it to work. We want people to be able to go up there and present like I am today and feel confident, not nervous, and be able to feel secure that their presentation is going without a hiccup. And we started looking at some of the problems. We noticed that even though we recommend that the conference room has, a normal table, there are times at conference rooms you might only have two spaces, one for a conference room, or maybe they both have to be conference rooms. But you might want to look at how the orientations change, because people are having different conversations in these conference rooms. So we want to look at the different meeting needs and the different conference technologies that they have. They want to be in the mix, participating remotely. People who are in the conference room, we want to make sure that they can see the people and the content at the same time. How many times have we had a presentation where you can either focus on what people are presenting on, and then you can't see the person that's meeting? Or if there's a couple of people presenting, it's really challenging to balance how the movement is and where you're moving about. So you want to think about the little cameras that are showing up, where they're placed, how the room can work multiply over different devices, including the ones that I bring into the room. How can that next generation conference room get up and running where I walk in and my phone knows who I am? How come that device can't pick up on my phone and just get that meeting going? Because I scheduled it. It knows me, right? And so consider the spaces, the furniture, new opportunities for changing the orientation, accommodating people's devices, and controlling the room lighting. So what if we had a place that was a sanctuary, that it was in an open floor plan that I could actually find a place where I feel comfortable, I get the privacy, I have complete control of my meeting, and I can do what I need to do there. And the technology remembered me, and it worked perfectly. Well, this is what we call the My Stage. This is a place that we think is really important in the workplace, where especially with the new plans of open floor plans, having a place for people to go to that's like a photo booth where they can set up the perfect lighting, the perfect camera, and then have and call into a meeting and really drive and feel very presentable. This is also typically an executive office or even your own personal private office, where the companies that still do that, it's really important to be able to feel that sense of control. And some of the problems that we see is that it's not always conducive. The lighting isn't always great in these rooms. They're very personal, so you have your personal attributes in there and all your personal content. So sometimes you want to fade those things away. So you want to look professional. You want to be in control of your digital presence. Your stage presence is usually really important. There's opportunities for the tech to recognize your ID. As we talked to, maybe it's a badge, maybe it's your phone. There's different ways that we can triangulate using sensors. There's also space opportunities. We typically thought about these places as, just a booth, but they could be set up for panel discussions or conversation geometry where two people might be on the call with somebody else. So you might want to think about how the furniture might rearrange to make that a more ideal space. And ideally, you want to make it extremely professional. For me, it's looking at all the tools and technology, making it ultimate control, being able to see how I look, and allowing that design to show that person who's looking at that camera to see their own self and see that they're tracking really well. So that actually wraps up the 4, but as you know, there's a 5th. And the 5th is the person that's remote. It's the person that works from any space. It's when you are on the bus and you're calling into a meeting, or you're in a coffee shop where it's super noisy and you want to still engage with the people that are in the room. I call this on the go. And this is pretty much my challenge 90% of the time working at Microsoft. As a person that has to deal with Skype and to deal with Link, how can we make these people that are calling in remotely feel like they're part of the experience? And you can't control that space at all. So if I can have anything that you guys walk away through today and just feel like there's tidbits for afterthought, it's you got to think in a holistic approach. It's not about the new awesome technology that comes out there. It's not just, hey, people need this. They have to work magically in the spaces. And when you fit that together really well, it's when you get the sweet spot between the digital and physical. So, all right. Thanks, guys.
Questions? So we have time for a few questions here. Is there anybody in the audience that kind of wants to know what the answer is?
Can I just make a plea?
Yes?
Please fix that audio problem.
Hers?
I meant the thing you were talking about, where you're
Oh, yeah.
calling
Yeah.
and you can't hear a darn thing.
Yeah. But you know what? What's crazy is that it's not just us. It's got to be the people that help design those spaces. It's like, where are you placing your mics? There's multiple mics. And then a lot of times when we set up these new spaces, they're not considering that at all.
Of course, I thought you meant the
I'm sorry. Sorry. I don't usually do the hand mic. Like, ah.
You're doing well with the headline. I get one too. What progress have you made? I mean, have you built some of these spaces? What are you up to?
Yeah, we internally at Microsoft, we work with the internal deployment of all the spaces. And this work has influenced how we have set aside new technology that we use in corporate. We have these spaces called alt spaces, where we're experimenting with new arrangements, new furniture, and this was influenced by Herman Miller's work. So a lot of this work has influenced several tracks, how we change the current workplaces, how we're looking at new product investments. I can't show you any of those, but I can guarantee you there's some really fun stuff happening internally, and even some stuff that I started kicking off and moved forward and said, okay, we have to do this, because the spaces are demanding it, the people are demanding it. So does that answer your question?
Are you connected? Are you connected at all with the retail portion? the new Microsoft Surface stores are
No, not.
pretty amazing in terms of user experience and some of the tools that are present there.
No, different group. I primarily work on meetings, and so since meetings don't really happen unless you're the on-the-go person who's happening to have a meeting at the Microsoft store.
Well, every sale's a meeting. Everyone. Anything else? Oh, there's one back there. Kevin?
Question was, you people are running at sort of, like the Moore's law of changing every 18 months, and we're the designers trying to catch up to you. Are we ever going to catch up to you?
Well, I think it's important to have a balance. I mean, I mentioned the old classroom, is that you may not catch up, but we still have to accommodate for the other spaces. And I think I just recently worked on a research, and it's not us and it's not you, it's users. Users are picking up the latest technology, the latest app, the things that are fitting for their needs. The people are okay with using Instagram for about 6 to 9 months and then not using it again. They'll find the next app and use it for 6 months and throw it away. And so how are we accommodating? I mean, you say 18 months for spaces. For software, it's even less than that. Does that answer your question?
No.
No. So, I mean, I don't think we can.
Last question. Anybody else?
Hi, so relying on apps means that you have to have that client interface on your whatever your device is, and that's a limitation, a barrier to entry. To what extent are you exploring appless engagement? So it's all essentially, for lack of a better term, browser-based, so you don't require the client to be pre-installed.
We are exploring quite a bit on cloud and web experiences. Even Link is a web. We have a Link web access that does quite a bit of experience. You don't even need to I think you have to download a plugin or a driver, but we are trying to look at experiences that are either embedded in products that we currently deliver or have some sort of enablement on the web. I mean, you still have to download something. I haven't seen it work completely seamless, but we are investing in experiences like that as well.
So let's thank Prarthana and stay tuned for the next one.